Hello and welcome to the Homeless Consultant channel. My name is Paul B. I am the Homeless Consultant. And I guess this is part 5 of the series Justice versus the Law. Giving you an update. Basically, my sleep is completely off at this point. It's a matter of sleeping when you can. And the thing I wanted to talk about though was, living in this car. I don't know if you've seen the other videos that show the car, but it's very small. It was 20 years ago a sporty little thing. Now it's a rusty thing. And I've never even been in the back seat. I'm too old to get back there. That's how hard it is to get into the back seat. There's this big thing in between. You can't lay down in here. So, as I spend all these years in this car, the only thing I can really do is work on my computer. And that computer is the central nervous system of my existence. The laptop. When I was becoming homeless, when I was leaving the apartment, I bought that computer. Of course, I never expected in a million years this would go on this long. I thought there would be somebody out there somewhere who would help, and quickly, and nobody did until that family helped after 3 years, and they were a tremendous help. But by then it was already too late. That's how quickly these things pile up. The things that you have to overcome pile up that quickly. So I bought that computer, and I had a home recording studio, video production studio. There were all kinds of things that I was doing. I had websites I was starting or trying to. The neighbors prevented it, but there was a whole bunch going on. And I had thousands of dollars of software, production software, and I moved as much over it from the desktop, which is a powerhouse, to the laptop that I bought as I could. So when I was in this car, one reason I can do these videos is because I have that on the laptop, and that thing's the central nervous system of my existence. That is my existence. My whole universe is in that computer. So as it's on my lap in this car, I can access the internet and communicate with the world. I can research. I can download, videos, watch videos, and concert videos, tutorials, learning. It's all I have. It's all I have to do. And yes, I have that production software on there. It turns out the computer was woefully underpowered. It really won't run the software very well. If I try to record more than a couple tracks at once, it just starts stuttering and stammering and skipping. It just doesn't have the power. And so other than the computer, the only thing I can do is, stuff like, here's a little half-scale guitar, just a ridiculous little thing. It's cute, but just horrible sound, and of course it smacks up against the window if I even try to squeeze it in here. There's no way to play a guitar when you can't hold it in such a way. Like if I'm trying to do, see, look at that. Look at all the effort I have to go through to change chords, because I can't hold the guitar, so it falls down when I go to change a chord. I spent 40 years learning to play guitar and drums very well, especially drums, and I can't do anything with it. I can bang the sticks on the steering wheel. It's hardly a drum set. I can play on a guitar that fits in here, sort of, smacks into the window. But other than that, all I have is my computer. That's my entire existence. If you watch the other videos in this series, you'll find that somebody who, as of now, still has not claimed responsibility, made it such that I'm not allowed to sleep at Walmart anymore, even though from all indications are that Walmart has no problem with it. And as I said to the city council, even ISIS, when ISIS takes a perfectly innocent person, just because they don't like them, they don't like their religion, they just hate them, just bile-spitting hatred for these people, they'll kidnap them, and they'll grab them by the hair, put them in an orange jumpsuit, and they'll take a knife and saw off their head. You know, when you hear about these beheadings and you picture a guillotine, something nice and clean. You put your head in there and it's done. That's not what happens. They go up with a knife, a serrated knife, and they saw their head off. And it takes quite a while to do it. And then they hold the head up proudly because they have murdered someone who they hate, someone who represents a class of people that they hate. You know, a class of people like the homeless, for example. ISIS takes responsibility when they do that, but nobody has taken responsibility. I still don't know what the name of the person is who's responsible for why I'm not allowed to sleep where I was sleeping in peace for a good year. I still don't know. They won't take responsibility for it. Was it the code enforcement officer? I don't know. Was it the whole planning department? I don't know. I don't know. The only thing I know is that I can't sleep anymore, particularly unless I pay more money for a hotel than I did before, because the Minnesota Department of Health, who also doesn't care whether the homeless live or die, they shut down the only hotel that the homeless could really afford. So now I have to pay more money, which means I save $0 just to get a couple of nights sleep a week. And then I try to stay awake in between. And this is supposed to be a life worth living. This is supposed to be an existence. This is Minnesota life for someone who doesn't have family and who got screwed over by a landlord who blatantly broke the law. But it's a lawless state. There's no respect for law in this state. Even though they replaced justice with the law, they don't respect the law. They use the law as a weapon. They enforce it when they want to. If there's a politician whose neighbors are noisy and violent and they are making their home life intolerable, then when the politician calls the police put a stop to the person who's breaking the law. But when that same exact thing happens to me, a nobody, they refuse to enforce that same law. So I'm the one who loses. And when the landlord refuses to enforce his lease, or at least that part of the lease where it's a big long paragraph about interfering with other neighbors' lives, he refuses to do that because he doesn't want to do any work, because Minnesotans are generally lazy bums. Watch my videos to see about that. He can do something like a constructive eviction, and he can tell someone to move out who is the only person that I'm aware of who paid his rent on time every time, improved his property at my own expense, protected his property from a security standpoint in the sense that I actually watched what was going on and I would call out issues. There was a guy downstairs when the gangsters started moving into this place. The guy locked himself out of it, and the bottom floor windows had bars on them. This guy was outside there with a crowbar trying to pull out the bars from his apartment to try to get in there. There's houses all over there, people outside milling about. Nobody called the police. Nobody did anything. This could have been anybody breaking into our building. I'm the only person who had anything to say about that. I respected my neighbors. I tiptoed through the apartment the whole time I was there. All the neighbors said we didn't even know anybody was in there. He was so quiet. I never interfered with their lives. They interfered with mine. But the landlord tells me to move out because he doesn't want to do the work I was paying him to do to enforce his lease on these other tenants. He didn't want to take the effort and do his job and do the right thing. So I lose my place, and as far as I know, they're still there 4 years later. And guess who's paying for it? You and me. Because most of them didn't even have jobs. They're living off welfare. That's not justice. And you know what? That's not the law either. That's when you have a law and it's selectively enforced. It's enforced for the benefit of the people in power, but it's completely ignored for everyone else. That's the weaponization of the law. So because of that, I live in this car. And all I have is that computer, which is my window to any kind of a life that could conceivably be worth living. A pair of drumsticks, a guitar that barely fits in here, that I can't even play. It sounds horrible anyway. The intonation on something. This guitar is so small. If you know anything about guitars, to keep the intonation, to keep the tuning correct, all up and down the fretboard, there's a lot of factors. You know, how the bridge is set up, how the neck is set up, the tuning mechanisms up here. All these things play a part in whether this thing sounds like it's in tune when you're down here and when you're up here. Alright? These things don't stay in tune. They're too small. You can't... It's just inherent in a small guitar. So here's what happened. I'm not allowed to sleep, so all I can do is drink as much coffee as I can to try to stay awake. Just drink coffee. Drink coffee. And if I have to go to the bathroom, well, I have to start the car. I have to drive to a gas station, go in there, use the restroom, usually with somebody else in the bathroom. I don't know about you, but for the last 4 years, whenever I use a toilet, someone else walks in on me. Does that happen to you every single day? Every single day, every single time you go to the bathroom? Happens to me, what, 60, 70% of the time? Because I have no privacy. I have nothing. Have you had someone, a total stranger, in the bathroom with you in your home when you're using the bathroom over the last 4 years? Because that's what I experienced. And a lot of these people are really creepy. The wear and tear on the car from having to constantly drive to a gas station just to go to the bathroom over and over and over again. The money it costs for the gasoline. No wonder I spend thousands of dollars repairing this car over and over, to the point where now I'm doing the same repairs I did 3 years ago because it's just going round robin. Because nothing improves. So all my money that I earn, just for the most part, goes into this thing. And to store things like my desktop computer, which has all the power, which I can't use. I mean, I've actually managed to get a couple nice instruments to replace what I lost. I lost so much. I had so much for that studio, and I lost it all, every bit of it. I've managed to replace it with a couple of really nice guitars, but I can't play them. I have to leave them in storage. I go pull them out and maybe sit in the car with the door open, or go to a park and I can play them for a bit. But otherwise, I'm stuck with this, something like this. I mean, I just picked up a little guitar. It was, what, $150. It was a full-size guitar, but it's an old classic. It's not quite a collector's item, but along those lines. But it was very, very similar to the very first guitar I had when I was a kid. And there's a story behind how I got the guitar and everything. I'd already been playing drums for about 10 years already. That thing's very special to me. It brings back a lot of memories. But I have to put it in storage. I can't play it. All I can do is drink coffee and try not to fall asleep. And the reason for that is because the human body has to sleep. I can't do anything about it. It's nature. And even someone as powerful, as big, broad shoulders and you know, badges and maybe even a gun, and someone as powerful as the code enforcement officer for a small town in Minnesota, even that person can't overcome the fact that nature requires that human beings go to sleep. And if he tries to prevent people from sleeping, you know what? They're going to fall asleep anyway. So while I was in this car working on my laptop, which sits in my lap, drinking coffee, which I have to drink to try to stay awake, right? Can you guess what happened? Nature did its thing. Despite the code enforcement officer of Burnsville, Minnesota, despite his implied claim that human beings can go without sleep and still survive and still function properly, despite such a powerful person making that claim or implying that claim, I still fell asleep. It's hard to believe, but I fell asleep. I was working on the computer and I fell asleep. And as I fell asleep, I lost control of my body, and this mug of coffee tipped over, fell onto the steering wheel, and it poured coffee into the computer. And it soaked the motherboard, and it destroyed the computer. There aren't many things that destroy a computer more quickly than getting liquid on the motherboard. And there was a lot of liquid on the motherboard. So it's gone. Those thousands of dollars of software, gone. My ability to edit videos for this channel or for any other purpose, gone. I don't even know how I'm going to get this video online. I'm probably going to have to go out and buy a little tablet just to have some connection with the world, and maybe I can figure out a way to get this online, but I can't edit it. A tablet. A tablet versus a professional recording studio. So now all I can do is sit in this car and do nothing. Nothing. I mean, I can how long can you do that? This isn't a drum set. I spent 40 years learning to play a drum set. I don't know. I can't even do anything on a steering wheel. I mean, I'm playing up like this. You're not supposed to play up like this. You're supposed to play down like this. I mean, I can't even do rudiments up here. Because I'm playing, it's as if you're playing up against a wall. That's not how you play drums. But that's what I've had to do the last 4 years. The only guitar I have doesn't even fit in here. It smacks against the window. And if you can't tell, I can't open the window because it's raining. It just started raining. So all I can do now is sit in this car and stare ahead of me. That's all I can do. Because I was not allowed to sleep. So instead of sleeping on my terms when I needed to and when I wanted to, I had to try to force myself to stay awake. And as I did so, nature showed that it is superior to both me and the code enforcement officer, or whoever is responsible for this but refuses to take responsibility, and this naturally fell over and doused and soaked my motherboard. So for all the work I do at that job, I'm just progressively losing. I have less money all the time. The repairs on this car, you look at my videos from a month ago, I just now got that paid off. And I'm going to need another alternator because, as I said in that video, the engine's leaking oil into the alternator. So I'm going to have to keep on replacing an alternator. How many times do you have to replace an alternator every, what? It's made it about a month so far. So what, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? Do you have to replace your alternator periodically like that? I do. I'm not seeing the justice in this at all. The only thing I'm seeing is law. And not even good law, but law that is enforced selectively and enforced by people who want to use law to hurt a specific class of citizen who they personally dislike. Just like those people where I lived in the apartment, they selectively enforced the law to benefit people who they did like, and then they just ignored the law. And as I'm driving to work every day, as I drive to work and as I just drive around, everyone around me is breaking the law. They go zooming by. They come up, I'll see a little bit of headlights in the back, and I'll drive and I'll look back and I'm like, they're right behind me. And they'll get so close I can't even see their headlights behind me. I see them run red lights. The people, nobody drives the speed limit on this. This is a highway. And can you count how many times I've seen the police pull anybody over? Given that nobody of the thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon tens of thousands of cars that have traveled down that road over these last several years, how many I've seen get pulled over by the police? The number is 0. Complete, total, utter lawlessness. And why are they tailgating me? Because I'm obeying the law. I'm driving the speed limit. I stop when there's a stoplight. They don't. They have a home. I don't. Do you see the justice in here? I do not. I do see the law. But even the law is not enforced. It's selectively enforced. When they feel like enforcing the law, they enforce it. When they don't feel like it, they don't. The law is not used to benefit the general welfare as the Constitution intended. Promote the general welfare. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and posterity. That ain't happening. All we have is one law after another, after another, after another, after another. So many laws that nobody even knows what the laws are. No one can keep track of them. Tens of thousands of laws. And all this legislature, this ridiculous, clownish legislature in Minnesota can do is pass laws that ban things, that mandate your behavior, that tell you what to do, tell you what to say, tell you how to behave, tell you what you cannot do. They'll tax you for this, they'll tax you for that, steal all your money. When I was trying to fix the computer, one thing I did was I pulled the little battery out. There's a watch battery in there that keeps the CMOS going, the BIOS, right? Keeps it going. I had no reason to believe it was bad, but I'm trying everything I can. So I popped it out and I went out to buy a battery. The battery, they only sold them in pairs, so I had to buy 2. I only needed 1, but they only sold them in pairs, and I tried a couple stores. It was $6.99 for that, for one battery, even though I got stuck with 2. The tax on it was 50 cents. $7 battery, and I had to pay 50 cents for tax. Going to that ridiculous legislature in Minnesota so they can squander it and find clever ways to shove some of it in their pocket so they can buy a second home while I don't even have a first home. Justice versus the law. There is absolutely no justice that I have experienced. But even the law that I experience is so selectively enforced, and there is so much lawlessness out here in this state because law is used to benefit the privileged few, and it's completely ignored otherwise. Because of that, I can't win with justice or with the law. If any of you out there don't like what you're hearing, instead of condemning me, and I know it's ridiculous, it's the year 2019, and this country has gone insane. I understand that. I can't do anything about it. The country has gone certifiably insane, and it's on its way out. Lessons of history would have been nice to teach, But school systems like the Minnesota school system decided not to teach that in favor of other things that they thought were more important. If you don't like it, instead of condemning me, blaming the victim, as you might say, why don't you call up a Minnesota legislature and ask them to, for example, do their job, the job they're paid to do? Because all they're doing is taking the money that was going to shelters and instead putting it toward a football stadium for a privately owned football team. That's why I have to drive to a gas station to use the bathroom. That's why my teeth are rotting out, because if I was able to brush my teeth at all over the last 4 years, I have to use rancid, sickening water that by all rights should make me sick every time I come near the stuff. But it doesn't, because I stopped using this corrupt healthcare system like 25 years ago. And hey, what do you know? I haven't been sick in 25 years. Everyone around me, people at work, dropping like flies, taking off sick days one after another. When I had the professional job before, someone would travel, come back, and they'd get sick because of the airplane. They sent me off to Baltimore, I come back, I'm fine. Because I stopped using this corrupt healthcare system and I started taking control of my own health. But that doesn't matter when it comes to physical realities like using rancid water to brush your teeth when you're able to brush your teeth, which is rarely. That's why I'm losing all my teeth. Now, not 4 years ago, now. Where's the justice in that? And what do they come up with? What do they say is the answer to that? Oh, we need more healthcare. We need a healthcare system. We need Obamacare. We need the government to get involved. The government, who, by their own negligence, got me into this situation, by their own negligence, have done nothing to get me out of this situation. The government, who is probably the single biggest problem I have had. If the government wasn't there, I wouldn't have so much of my income taxed away from me so that they can squander it and steal it. It's just theft. It's theft. These people are thieves. They're thieves. And they're using a gun that the government holds to make sure that you pay it. And if you don't pay it, they're going to use that gun. They're thieves. These legislators, they are thieves. They are no better than those people sitting in those prisons behind bars because they stole. They're no better. But because we replaced justice with law, those people get to continue doing what they're doing. And they get access to television where they can go out and try to convince the ignorant masses that what they're doing is right. Whereas people like me have to sit here in a channel that gets maybe 30 views and tell you, no, they're doing something that's wrong. They're stealing money. I would love to have all that money they've stolen from me in taxes to pay for example, the welfare of those people who are still in the apartment building I was in before. Because I'm paying their rent. I always was paying their rent. You are paying their rent. Because they didn't want to work for a living. They just wanted to stay home all day and boom, 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 boom. So that people like me who work for a living had to live in sheer terror inside his own home. To the point where I lost that home. When I go to this hotel, there's people in there who are there every single day. They live in the hotel. They live in the hotel. And when I'm there, they just stand around like little groups talking and chatting all the time. I never see them going out to a job. Who's paying for that hotel? That hotel costs more for 1.5 days a week than my entire rent for the whole month cost in that room. That's sky high compared to the rent I paid for a home. Who's paying that hotel bill for them who don't work for a living to be there every single day? Every single day. Whereas I have to go work for a week just so I can spend 1.5 days in a hotel. Who's paying for that? According to the law, I'm paying for it. Because these lawmakers are stealing my money, ultimately at gunpoint, and they're using that money to pay for those people, because when they do that for those people who do nothing with their lives, they vote for the same legislators and put them back in power. I wouldn't vote for those legislators, but guess what? If you watch my videos, I'm not allowed to vote in the state of Minnesota because I'm homeless. So I can't even try to vote these people out of office. It's against the law, it's unconstitutional. As an American citizen, I have every right to cast my vote, but thanks to the state of Minnesota, and thanks to this corrupt media that won't tell everybody about this, I'm not allowed to cast my vote. Where do you see the justice in here? All I see is law. Law that is selectively enforced to benefit the privileged few and to hurt the people who ultimately are paying for their paradise. Me, the guy who lives in this car, who works for a living. And now, thanks to the powerful, well, I shouldn't say that because he hasn't claimed responsibility. I don't know who no one will claim responsibility for making sure that I'm not allowed to sleep. No one has done it yet. ISIS hasn't. So, since they do take responsibility for their crimes, I'm pretty confident that ISIS is not responsible for this particular act of terror. Because they would have claimed responsibility. But whoever it is in Minnesota who's responsible for this particular act of terror, making sure that I can't sleep, they have not claimed responsibility. That's all I have for you. I could go on all day because I have no computer anymore, so I have nothing to do but sit in this car. But I know you'd rather go watch the latest Beyonce video, so I'm just going to leave you to Justin Bieber and the mainstream news media that tells you nothing but lies. Have at it.